super important to advocate for the deaf community because there's so much discrimination all across in all different aspects of life, whether they're trying to find a job or whether they're just trying to order things at a restaurant. All of these things, they're discriminated all the time. Some people will say, hey, you can't have this job because you're deaf. And that's just not something that there are laws now that protect deaf people from those kinds of things happening. So the more that people advocate for them and the more that people support the deaf community and spread the word about the deaf community and how they're just like everybody else, and that this whole discrimination thing should just be something of the past, the more that people are educated about it. It's important for people to learn sign language because there are so many deaf people around. You know, you don't actually realize it until maybe you have a job working in a restaurant and then a deaf couple comes in and you're like, oh, well, you know what, I really wish I had some way of communicating with them because I have to be the one to serve them their food. So I think in instances like that, it's important to know even some basic sign language, just to ask them like, oh, what would you like to eat? Something as simple as that. And I also think it's important just because it's respectful. You know, there's a lot of deaf people around. If you are constantly interacting with deaf people, you know, then it just kind of makes sense that maybe after a little while you start learning sign language so that you can communicate with them in their natural language, because they do their best to communicate with you in what language you speak, which is usually English here in our area. In order for me to change this outcome of discrimination, I would like to go out and just kind of educate people. I often tell people I'm a deaf studies major and that I sign, and that people are really interested, like, oh no, I really want to learn sign, and then I encourage them to go ahead and learn sign, because that's the first step right there. The more you know about sign language and the more you kind of know a little bit about the nuances of the culture, at least little kind of basic things, then that's a step in the right direction already. You're already going to come across someone who's going to be like, oh, well, I don't like deaf people, but then you can kind of stand up and say, hey, well, you know what, their language is really beautiful, and you can say that, yes, they're people, they do all these really awesome things. And I think that it's important just to kind of dabble a little bit in those areas. And I know that I know that I like to share my experiences with everyone else, despite whether they're deaf or hearing.